Howdy. They've got this opnus mmxii, beautiful Japanese lever lock, smooth as anything, and it's also rekeyable. So they've made the levers in two parts. The bellies and the gates are separate. Normally they're held together by these sort of serrated teeth, but by inserting a special change key and rotating it 180 degrees, you can unlock them and then stick in a new key, turn it back, and Bob's your uncle, your lock's been rekeyed. They're also a bit of a trap when you're disassembling it. If you don't keep the right bits in the right place, it will spontaneously rekey itself, which is a little bit fiddly to fix, but it's not the end of the world. Anyway, this one's got a reputation as being somewhat tricky to pick. It's got a nicely engineered design. It's got smooth levers, which just have a single true gate, and they act pretty tapered. And then it's got levers with false gates. So they've got one false gate on either side of the true gate. And they are nice and easy to overset. So I'm just setting one of those now. This lever is kind of my nemesis. It's number 6 on the left. It's a number 1 cut, so it has to be set very close to the wall of the keyway, but not quite on it, and very early in the picking process. So everything kind of hinges on getting that one right. So hopefully I've got that one. The engineering of this lock means it's very sensitive to oversets. And so a lot of my time learning to pick this has really been in learning how not to overset things. One of the techniques that I've come to use a lot is resting my pick on the tensioner on the right and actually pivoting it to pick levers on the right, keeping my hand stiff as well. And that really reduces the amount of sort of spring energy that's stored in my hand. So when that lever comes free, whatever I'm pressing down on, it doesn't fly beyond where I was going for, but actually stays in much the same position. Different technique here on the left. I'm getting under a lever and then rotating like I'm picking a dimple lock or something with a flag. Another nice way to get a false gate into the right position. Okay, so got a run of 3 max lift smooth levers on the right. They're starting to bind now, so we'll give them a lift. They are very tapery, so it's going to be quite a while before they are home. I'm going to have to keep revisiting all these tapered levers. A couple at the back on the right here, along with a false gated lever that really doesn't like to stay in its true gate in this phase of the pick. Okay, now I'll move on to the left side for a little bit. Behind the first lever, there's another run of max lifts. Most of these are false gated, but one is smooth. And that's one of the other levers that I'm just going to have to keep coming back to. The max lift tapers really take a lot of tapping. Now I mentioned, techniques to limit over travel. I think the alternative to that is probably developing really good tension control. I'm sure if you are a super deft touch with the tension, you wouldn't need to push so hard on things in the first place and you wouldn't be over traveling. That's, it's really not my cup of tea. You can probably tell my hands are a little wobbly, which in part is because it's cold and part just because I got wobbly hands. I'm not really a very delicate kind of person. I'm just not wired that way. All right, checking my levers on the right here. So yeah, my alternative to developing a more sensitive touch is really just to work out ways to deal with my very crude abilities. Now, where are we up to? Just checking those tapers in the corner. They did need they were binding a little, they need a touch. Got to be careful with the tapers in this. They do bind up really hard if the core gets too much rotation in between when you tap them. Nothing particularly surprising there, they're just well made. Okay, coming on the left side, setting the last of these false gated max lifts. Just going to check the very back lever. So the very back and the very front levers in the lock. So that's the last one on the left and the front one on the right. Smooth levers, but they're shaped a little differently, and in fact they're a different colour to the other smooth levers in the lock. I'm not sure why that is, but they bind very late in the process. So once they start binding, you're getting there. So that back lever is just starting to bind. Just going to go visit the tapered max lift on the left here. It's not binding. We've got some other work to do. Very front lever, also not binding. So there's, here we go, there's tapered max on the right, needed touching. Nothing at the back. Right 7 is fine, right 6 is binding, right 5 is fine, right 4, 3, 2, not feeling any binding there. Back to the left. Left 2 is in true gate. Left 3 is binding. There's a pretty big movement there. Left 7, are we binding there again or not? Doesn't feel like it. So one of the big issues I have with this lock is because it is so unforgiving with the oversets, it's quite difficult to let many of these levers go without dropping a whole bunch of other stuff. Is that I sort of lose concentration partway through. So I'll be quite a ways in, so probably about this far, and then suddenly realise that I've been applying, lever moving force when I was trying to jiggle test something, or I just really wasn't paying attention. I pushed it too far, which is quite frustrating. It's been a long process to get comfortable with this one, and it's not like my attention span's gotten any better. So right now I'm really walking those tapers up. I'm just checking the remaining, all of the tapered levers on both sides. There's not a whole lot of feedback indicating that they're binding. I'm not getting any pops out of them. Check that very frontmost lever, still nothing doing. Now, this is the second time I picked this today. Nice pop out of the max lift on the left there. The first time I picked this went fine, but then I exploded the sidebar out of frame, which is a bit of an oopsie. So I'm doing this again just so I can gut it, which is a whole lot of fun. Okay, max lifts on the right, nothing doing there. Was that front lever binding? Maybe a little tiny bit. Start again on the left. Back lever feels free. So another thing like most sidebar locks, as the sidebar gets further and further into the gates, the jiggle on each lever gets smaller. And I'm actually having quite a bit of trouble feeling stuff today because it's freezing here in Canberra. I was actually hoping to film this somewhere fun outdoors, but the weather's really not conducive to that. You're just getting me inside today, I'm afraid. Okay, getting some good movement out of the tapers. Got some nice pops there on the right. Back to the left. Little tiny pop. Must be getting pretty close, I think. This is the frustrating sort of final phase where really just very gentle taps. Sometimes not even any obvious movement of what you're tapping. Oh, there we go. And we're open. Now I'm just going to collect myself for a minute so I don't repeat my sidebar exploding of the last time, because that was a bit embarrassing. So I'm going to relock this bad boy, flip her over, just 2 security screws holding this in. So the trick to not rekeying these is the rekeying mechanism moves the axle that the levers pivot on, and that's controlled by an end plate at each end of the lock. So if you keep the end plates on, that will typically stop it. Okay, it will stop it from rekeying itself from coming loose. Okay, I'm going to put a finger on the sidebar this time so we don't explode it. Oh, that's better. Okie dokie. Now, that's one of the end caps. I'm just going to let that come off. Grab it by the sidebar here. Let that end cap come off too. I don't really care if it rekeys itself right now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the key, and you're going to be able to watch all of the... okay, I'm going to take the sidebar out first, actually. There we go. Staying in frame this time. Hopefully you can see that that's intact, and I'm going to bring this down as well. Now we're going to very carefully zoom in, frame, 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 blah, blah, blah. So you can see this sidebar. I'm just going to carefully flip it over so you can see the other side. Okay, bit worn, intact, very happy. And then I'm going to really focus in on what's going on in here. So if I insert the key, you'll see the levers all moving back and forth. So showing this is not one of the mastered variants of this lock, like an MMX. They all line up nicely. You can see the false gates there, I hope. A little bit tricky to see on this little camera screen. And then moving again as we pull it back out. Just get the light nicely on it, there we go. Beautiful. Alrighty, and there we go. That's the mmx2 by Opnus. Beautiful lock.